Hello, friends. It is the third Sunday of Easter. We are still celebrating, folks. It is still Easter, so you can definitely say Happy Easter to everybody you know. Are you going to annoy them? Good. You're doing something right. All right, let's talk about this. So, the gospel. Yeah. So, have we forgotten what gospel is? Well, gospel originates from the Greek euangelion, which means good announcement or good news. And far too often, we get great news. Back in the day, I'm sure you remember the days when we had to. I remember the day when my parents would tell me the story of when I was born. My grandma would had a pocket full of quarters. What happened was they were in this waiting room in the hospital, and they would hear this like this sound, like there's like constant sound. It's like shaking. It's like thought maybe something was going on, or there was somebody was kept dropping like a quarter or two or something like that. Here it was my grandma. She was anticipating the news of my birth, basically, just like many people were anticipating the birth of Jesus. And now, of course, as we are navigating the Easter season, we're anticipating his resurrection. Back in the day, of course, before we had Facebook, before we had YouTube, before we had whatever it is out there, we would call people up and announce the news of the new job, the new home, the engagement, baby, the graduation, whatever the case is, or even someone winning a political campaign, whatever the case is. But of course, at the time of Jesus, there was none of that. So, of course, you had people that had to go from town to town sharing the good news of Jesus. And of course, Jesus did that. He went town to town sharing this. Here, just days after, just sometime after he rose from the dead, he was accompanying these people here that he was alive. They didn't know who he was. Who was accompanying them? The only way that they recognized him was, and of course, Jesus was accompanying these people too. How often do we have people that accompany us? Well, there are times that I like to accompany ladies, to protect them, especially if they're like in a really sketchy part of town, make sure to get their car safely. Because I live in a city where that we exceeded 500 or more homicides a year. Not too far behind Chicago, of course, but I digress. The two disciples initially recognized Jesus the moment he broke the bread. They were overwhelmed to see Jesus because that's how they initially recognized him. And they rushed back to the apostles who were still in hiding too to announce that they saw Jesus. They were greeted with the good news. That good news is called to be shared with others. How often are we scared to share that? How often? Now, it's okay to share disappointing news, but it's always better to share the good news. Now, let's face it, in today's world, we are bombarded with bad news. Murder, the abortion rate. This child is doing the hormone puberty blockers, whatever it is. Sadly, our world needs to hear more good news. And I think this gospel reading for the third Sunday of Easter is that perfect reminder, especially now that we're going to be getting very close to the halfway point of our celebration as we celebrate the resurrected Jesus, who conquered death on the cross, who rose as he promised and was foretold by the prophets. Jesus' resurrection changed everything. It was a game changer. As Fulton Sheen reminds us that death will have its hour, but of course God will have his day. And he's right. And we're seeing this unfold. The gospel, of course, motivates us that we cannot hold back the great news that must be shared and proclaimed with the message of hope that Jesus will come again. The one thing that the apostles had to understand is that they were trained for this moment through the public ministry for the last 3 years. Friends, as we continue to celebrate, as we had to hear this proclamation from Peter in the Acts of the Apostles. God raised this Jesus, of this we are all witnesses, exalted at the right hand of God. He received the promise of the Holy Spirit from the Father and poured him forth, as you see and hear. After his conversion, St. Paul will do the same thing. And through his epistles to Rome, to Corinth, to Thessalonica, everywhere, even to the Hebrews, he would share, he would reflect on God's plan of salvation through Jesus' passion, death, and resurrection. He even reminds us of spreading the good news, as he once wrote, "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him in whom they have not believed?" How beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news, as he says to the Romans. Let us share the hope we have in Jesus Christ. Share the peace which is his gift. The Lord is risen, my friends. Alleluia. He is risen indeed. Happy Easter. Go and tell the good news.